It seems as though the millennials are engaged in a generational mudslinging campaign, no? Criticisms from Gen Xers and baby boomers stem from how almost literally anything can and probably will offend them. Oh, yeah, I was pretty offended off that. To how they act as though their perspective dictates the world around them. Whoa. Now, I can't speak for all millennials, but I certainly can say that some of us might have an idea worth spreading. Some of us actually make sense. Some of us are having technical difficulties right now, right? Thank you. In a recent study, it was suggested that millennials spend most of their $2 billion purchasing power on smartphones, energy drinks, and organic foods. I mean, at least we're pretty healthy while we're destroying the economy, right? But then again, guess what else made the list? Hot chili sauce. So yeah, understandably, I can see why previous generations might be a little concerned about the economic decision-making of millennials. But today, I am here to explain the method behind the economic madness during these times that I affectionately call the Millennial Age of Data. It is my theory that millennials are evolving and adapting to their changing economic environment by integrating the traditional physical system of capitalism into a less physical new digital one. Combining the disciplines of neuroscience and history, we will examine the stigmatized behavior of millennials as a Darwinic neural response, triggered by the current economic environment. So great, right? But we have a definition of economy, but how does neuroscience and history come into play? Okay, great. Well, previous generations always say that history repeats itself. So defined in this way, one could say that people could share the same skills and decision-making throughout differing time periods. Therefore, an economic environment could be considered an indicator of what the great majority of that society believes is valuable at the time. The study of how we measure these decisions and why people make these decisions, it's called neuroeconomics. But wait. How does the economy act as a catalyst for millennial evolution? Well, it is my belief that millennials are evolving, and these technical difficulties, man, as a millennial, I'm very unimpressed. Let's go back. It is my belief that millennials are more receptive to consumerism due to the abundance of technology that allows them to create more passive income as producers. As producers with surplus, their ability to consume is increased, creating a favorable environment for suggestibility and an even better market for technology. Now, with this said, I don't believe that millennials are the first generation that this has happened to. I do believe that they are more heavily scrutinized because the media in general these days is less censored than in previous generations. So, to make this talk as unbiased for all parties involved, we are going to focus on a concept that is familiar to everyone in the room, I would think. American history, right? With a show of hands, how many people are familiar with this concept, manifest destiny? Oh, cool then, yeah. If you're not, don't fret, don't worry. As a matter of fact, we'll jump right in. We'll dive right in to the concept. Manifest destiny and the Millennial Age of Data both have one central theme, both encouraging individual economic opportunity and the gain of territory Manifest destiny is defined as the 19th century doctrine or belief that the expansion of the United States throughout the American continents was both inevitable and justified. It is defined by two major things: the California Gold Rush of 1849 and the Transcontinental Railroad. The California Gold Rush of 1849 came to an end, leading to a population increase that ended up leading to the construction of railroads and roads and steamships. During this time period, the Pacific Railroad, now known as the Transcontinental Railroad, was built to connect the east and west parts of the United States. In comparison, the Millennial Age of Data is defined as a period in human history characterized by a shift from the traditional practice based on industrialization to a shift to a more millennial economy based on technology and information. So with a multi-billion-dollar purchasing power, it isn't hard to see that we've kind of accomplished individual economic opportunity. But when you look at technological innovations, such as applications, or apps for short, you can see that we have created a technology wherein the consumer can connect with specific people and markets of their choice, just as the Transcontinental Railroad allowed the facilitation of goods, people, and services from different parts of the country to another. With that said, we also have gained territory, but in a more unconventional sense of the word territory. Attempting to colonize the ones and zeros of the internet, we millennials have created and are gravitating heavily towards a self-sufficient, more digital market. A defining characteristic of this market is going viral. Virility, in this sense, is the establishment of familiarity, right, to an unknown group at a constantly accelerating rate, with the best practices eliciting strong emotional responses such as ethos, logos, and pathos. The producers use this to brand their product and sell them to others. In addition, the interconnectedness of the internet also leads to an increased consumer base. This consumer base is maintained by customer satisfaction, which is maintained throughout constant communication and mass exchange of information. And once this customer satisfaction is maintained long-term, it becomes customer loyalty. Once it becomes customer loyalty, it facilitates the mental colonization of the consumer base by their own producer. That's why you think about them so much. Now, I know it seems far-fetched, but I assure you it can be explained by a natural occurrence in the brain that is also explained by Hebb's theory of associative learning. Dr. Donald Hebb, a neuropsychologist, said that neurons that fire together wire together. With this said, he stated that every experience, physical sensation, emotion, and thought triggers thousands of neurons which build a neural network. Now, thinking about this, one could really believably compare the neural network to the social networks of the internet. So, now you're probably thinking, well, is there a problem with the way things are, or what's the purpose of mental colonization? Is there a purpose for it? Okay, well, to answer both of those questions, yes. In our current economy, the middle class is expected to shrink, if not be completely consumed by the working class. Subsequently, the traditional market is becoming oversaturated in markets such as the white-collar market, which is projected to create a distinct line between the two remaining socioeconomic classes, causing a crude example of the have and have-nots. Like so. And millennials, well, we like to have. We don't like to be have-nots. So while Gen Xers and baby boomers see self-entitlement, we see unexplored opportunity in a traditional market that is currently projected to actually limit the economic advancement of its people. So with this said, we opt out of developing traditional skills and we opt into brain dumping. So what is brain dumping? Well, brain dumping is sacrificing one skill for another skill that helps you be more efficient in that same environment. Millennials do this by sacrificing traditional skills and then improving ones that they see will benefit their own personal economic paths. So, diving deeper into this concept of the virtual economy, you would think that a skill such as evolving or learning how to use multiple skill sets would be favorable in an environment where the consumer base is learning information just as quickly as the producer. So, okay, breather. Now that we know all of that, we can now confidently go into how the minds of millennials actually complement the traditional economy and bring in or facilitate the new era of economy brought in by millennials. Some studies argue that the millennial is changing. They are exchanging the comprehensive reading and speaking for texting and web surfing. In turn, some studies argue that this affects the lobes that are heavily indicated in communication, such as the prefrontal cortex, the cerebellum, and the parietal lobe. The same study goes on to suggest that the excessive use of technology also atrophies or shrinks the outermost or bark of the brain, making it difficult for millennials to process information. And the study concludes on a very depressing and sad note, saying that we are basically unfit for our environment because we're different and we interact with the people and the environment unlike previous generations. But is that a bad thing? I mean, what if it isn't? What if it's actually an evolutionary response created by collaboration and amassing large amounts of information and storing them through digital interconnectedness, reinforced by newer, stronger neural ties? So my continuing point is that millennials are actually the horrible decisions they make actually is their evolutionary positives, right? That facilitate and add and boost to the stability of our current economy. So with this said, while neural ties may be broken and while it may be difficult to process information alone, maybe we do it together. Maybe, maybe we can hold different jobs. Maybe we haven't picked a career because we know there's economic freedom and flexibility. Maybe we don't have a savings account because we haven't figured out how far we want to set the bar. But it should be noted that as we are being critiqued for our personal developments, we are evolving as multitaskers, consumers of complex information, and collaborators. So, Gen Xers, baby boomers, don't criticize us. Help us. Help us during these times that we are bringing in. I only ask that you are open-minded and tolerant of our views as we are to yours. Please, be a part of the new economy that is both inevitable and justified, that we are all going to live in. Give yourselves a round of applause for being so open-minded. Thank you.